In 1980, a young girl vanished without a trace during a crowded rock concert, leaving her mother to endure decades of unanswered questions and heartache. But 25 years later, while flipping through a magazine, the mother spots something eerily familiar, a detail that leaves her frozen in disbelief and turned the entire case on its head. Harrow clutched her handbag tightly as she made her way through the bustling international arrivals terminal of Montreal Trudeau Airport at 62. The journey from Manchester had been exhausting, but the anticipation of seeing her best friend after nearly a decade kept her steps light despite her fatigue. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for the familiar face, though they had both aged. Evie knew she would recognize Diana instantly. They had been inseparable during their university years in the UK. And even though life had pulled them in different directions, Diana to Canada with her husband, and Evie remaining in Manchester, they had maintained their bond. Through letters, phone calls, and occasional visits, "Evie, over here." The voice cut through the airport noise, and Evie turned to see Diana Clarkson, waving enthusiastically despite her 61 years. Diana still had the energetic aura that had drawn Evie to her during their first meeting in the university cafeteria 4 decades ago. Her silver-streaked hair was styled in a fashionable bob, and her eyes sparkled with the same youthful mischief Evie remembered Diana. Evie called back, quickening her pace. They embraced tightly, both women holding on as if making up for all the years spent apart. "Happy birthday, you old thing," Diana said, her voice muffled against Eve's shoulder. Evie laughed, pulling back to look at her friend. "Not until tomorrow, but thank you, you look wonderful," Diana said, her eyes taking in Eve's appearance. "Retirement suits, you? You're one to talk," Evie replied, still creating art and looking as vibrant as ever. Diana linked her arm through Evie's as they began walking toward the exit, the tattoo parlor. "Keeps me young. My hands aren't as steady as they once were, but my clients say that adds character to their designs." They made their way to the train station adjacent to the airport, chatting animatedly about Diana's life in Montreal's Plateau area, where she had established herself as a respected tattoo artist after moving from the UK. With her husband now deceased, as they settled into their seats on the train, Diana said, "I can't believe it's been almost 10 years since Michael and I visited you in Manchester." Evie nodded, a shadow passing over her face. "Time slips away, doesn't it? I kept telling myself I'd visit sooner." But she trailed off, both women knowing what had held her back. The grief that had become Eve's constant companion since her daughter's disappearance 25 years ago. "How are you really doing?" Diana asked softly, squeezing Eve's hand. "The breast cancer is in remission," Evie replied, smiling faintly. "The doctor warned me not to get too stressed, says it's bad for my recovery." "Then this trip is exactly what you need," Diana declared, her tone brightening. "Your birthday, the music festival. What could be better at our age? This might be the last time we do something this adventurous together," Evie remarked. Diana chuckled. "Speak for yourself. I plan to be causing trouble well into my 80s. They shared a laugh, and for a moment, Evie felt the weight she'd carried for 25 years lighten slightly. "And how are you doing with everything else?" Diana asked carefully. Evie knew what she meant. "It's been about 3 months since I've had one of those waves, you know. When I can't help but start searching again," she sighed. "I'm trying, Diana. I'm trying to make peace with it, to keep Marissa in my heart without letting the grief consume me." "She would want that for you," Diana said gently. Evie nodded, swallowing the knot that formed in her throat. Whenever she thought of her daughter, Marissa had been only 10 years old when she disappeared during a concert in 1980. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no trace of her had ever been found. The pain had cost Evie her marriage, her husband unable to cope with the constant reminder of their loss, and had shaped every aspect of her life since. "Let's talk about something else," Evie suggested, forcing brightness into her voice. "Tell me more about this music festival." Diana, understanding her friend's need to change the subject, reached into her bag and pulled out a glossy magazine. "Actually, I wanted to show you something. The festival has some incredible local artists coming." And there's this amazing tattoo designer I thought you might like." She sat close to Evie and flipped open the magazine called Inked, turning directly to a page in the middle without Evie getting a clear look at the cover. The page displayed a series of intricate tattoo designs. "This one would look stunning on you," Diana said, pointing to a delicate floral pattern. I've scoffed. "Me with a tattoo? Look at my skin, Diana. I'm all wrinkles and sag. Now a tattoo would just get lost in the fold." "Nonsense," Diana countered. "Some of my best clients are over 60, and besides, wouldn't it be wonderful to celebrate our friendship with matching tattoos, something small and meaningful?" Evie considered the idea, surprised to find herself tempted. "Well, if anyone could make me look good, it would be you. Exactly. Let's be young again. Evie, let's do something spontaneous." Evie smiled, examining the designs on the page. "I don't see anything here that speaks to me," she said, finally. "Look through the rest of the magazine," Diana suggested, handing it to her. "Maybe you'll find something you like." As Evie flipped through the pages, she eventually turned back to the cover and gasped. The image showed a woman with extensive facial tattoos, piercings, and what appeared to be decorative horns. Her face was transformed into something almost otherworldly, with elaborate patterns covering every visible inch of skin. Why would anyone do this to themselves? Evie asked, studying the image with a mixture of fascination and horror. "She's made herself look like some sort of devil or monster." "It's just body art," Deanna replied, unfazed by the extreme modification. "Some people express themselves more dramatically than others." Evie was about to reply when something caught her eye. A colorful headband. The woman was wearing it featured a vibrant pattern with an orange guitar graphic and splashes of teal and pink. The sight of it sent a jolt through Eve's body. "That headband," she whispered, her voice suddenly strained. Diana looked at her with concern. "What about it? Marissa had one exactly like it," Evie said, her fingers trembling as they traced the image. "It was from her favorite band, Velvet Blaze. They gave it to her when we went backstage at their concert the day she disappeared." Memories flooded back, the excitement on Marissa's face as they entered the crowded venue. The thrill when they were allowed backstage to meet the band. The pride Evie felt watching her daughter receive the treasured headband from her idols, and then the panic, the heart-stopping moment, when Evie realized Marissa was no longer beside her, lost in the sea of concert-goers. "I was so absorbed in the concert," Evie continued, her voice thick with emotion. "So stimulated by the crowd, the music, I didn't realize she had wandered off until it was too late." Tears began to form in her eyes. "We never found her, Diana, despite everything. We never found her." Diana gently took the magazine from Eve's trembling hands and pulled her friend close. Evie leaned on Diana's shoulder, allowing the tears to fall freely. After a few moments, Evie composed herself and straightened up. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her eyes. "We were just talking about letting go. And here I am falling apart at the sight of a headband." "Don't apologize," Diana said firmly. "Emotions need to be released. Suppressing them isn't healthy." Evie nodded gratefully. "I don't know how I would have survived all these years without your friendship. You've been my rock. Even from across an ocean, that's what friends are for." Diana replied, squeezing Evie's hand, "And that's something to be grateful for. A friendship that has endured through everything life has thrown at us." As the train continued toward Montreal, Evie tried to push thoughts of the magazine cover from her mind, but the image of the headband remained, stirring questions and memories. She had spent years trying to reconcile. They disembarked from the train at the station closest to Diana's home in the plateau. The late morning sun cast a gentle glow over the colorful roas and tree-lined streets that characterized the neighborhood. Evie breathed in the fresh air, grateful for the change of scenery from her quiet life in Manchester. "It's not far from here," Deanna said as they began walking. "I hope you don't mind the short walk. I thought it would be nice for you to see the neighborhood." "Not at all," Evie replied, taking in the sights. Her luggage was minimal. Just a single rolling suitcase and a small carry-on bag Diana had assured her that anything else she needed would be available at the house. As they turned onto Diana's street, Evie noticed an unusual amount of activity. Several vans with network logos were parked along the curb, and people with cameras and equipment moved purposefully around the area. "What's going on?" Evie asked, gesturing toward the commotion. "Oh, it's for the music festival," Diana explained. "They'll be here all week this morning on my way to pick you up. I saw some of the performers and band personnel going into that penthouse-style loft over there." She pointed to a modern building at the end of the street. Looking beyond the media vehicles, Evie could see the festival set up in the distance, a sprawling array of stages, tents, and vendor booths spread across a large open field. "The festival grounds are just a short walk from my house." Diana continued. "It's one of the reasons I bought tickets. We can come and go as we please without dealing with parking or public transportation." They reached Diana's house, a charming two-story row home with a small garden in front. Inside the space reflected Diana's artistic personality. Walls adorned with artwork, eclectic furniture arranged for comfort rather than convention, and natural light streaming through large windows. "Make yourself at home," Diana said, taking Eve's coat. "I'm going to hop in the shower and get ready for the day. Your room is upstairs, first door on the right. If you want to freshen up, or just relax down here if you prefer." "I think I'll just sit for a bit," Evie replied, settling onto a comfortable sofa in the living room. "The journey's caught up with me. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen," Diana called over her shoulder as she headed upstairs. "I won't be long, alone in the living room." Evie noticed the inked magazine on the coffee table. Curiosity overtook her, and she picked it up again, turning to the article about the woman on the cover. The headline read, "Paisley Williams tells her story." Several photographs accompanied the article, close-ups of various tattoos on the woman's body, each with its own meaning and story. Evie began reading, learning that Paisley Williams was 35 years old and married to Troy Maddox, the 45-year-old lead singer of a band called Glass Saints. According to the article, they were performing at the Montreal Music Festival this week. The interview delved into Paisley's motivation for her extensive body modifications. "Each tattoo represents a chapter in my journey." Paisley was quoted saying, "They were born out of years of heartbreak and betrayal, of being left by the person I loved most when I was young." Evie felt a pang of empathy as she continued reading. "I wear my pain like a trophy now," Paisley continued in the article. "My body is a canvas that tells the story of how I became who I am. A new person forged from the ashes of abandonment." The words struck Evie deeply. She couldn't help but wonder if Marissa had. She survived whatever fate befell her, might have similar feelings of abandonment and betrayal. Would she blame Evie for losing her in that crowd? Would she have transformed her pain into something visible, as Paisley had? "What are you doing?" Diana's voice interrupted Eve's thoughts as she returned to the living room, her hair wrapped in a towel. "Just reading about this woman," Evie replied, holding up the magazine, the one with the headband. "Her story is quite moving, actually." Diana sat beside her, glancing at the article. "Many people experience hurt, abandonment in this world," she said thoughtfully. "We're lucky to have each other, and Paisley Williams is lucky to have her career and success. It's a form of justice, really, by God. Or the universe?" Evie nodded, looking again at the image of Paisley with the velvet blaze headband. "Do you think Marissa might be out there somewhere living a whole life I know nothing about?" Tiana squeezed her friend's hand. "I don't know, Evie, but I do know that wherever she is, she would want you to find moments of joy, like celebrating your birthday at a music festival with your best friend." Evie smiled gratefully. "You're right, and you know what, I think I will get that tattoo, something to commemorate this trip and our friendship. That's the spirit," Diana exclaimed, standing up. "Let me get dressed, and then we can head over to the festival grounds. I want us to look around before the main crowds arrive." As Diana disappeared upstairs again, Evie returned to the article, studying Paisley's features beneath the tattoos. There was something in her eyes that seemed familiar, a vulnerability at odds with her dramatic appearance. Or perhaps Evie thought she was simply seeing what she wanted to see, a connection to the daughter. She had lost a daughter who would now be about Paisley's age. Sighing, she closed the magazine and set it aside. Diana was right. This trip was about finding moments of joy. Not dwelling on the past, when Diana returned, dressed in stylish but comfortable clothes suitable for a day at a music festival, Evie had composed herself. "Shall we go check out the festival?" she asked with forced brightness. "Absolutely," Diana replied, grabbing her bag. "I think you're going to love it." As they left the house, Evie took one last glance at the magazine on the coffee table. The image of Paisley Williams, with her velvet blaze headband, burned into her memory. The late morning sun cast a gentle warmth over the festival grounds. As Evie and Diana made their way through the entrance, colorful banners lined the pathways, showcasing the lineup of band's activities, vendors, and sponsors. Evie noticed a large poster featuring glass saints with Paisley Williams prominently displayed alongside her bandmates. "They're one of the headliners," Diana explained, following Evie's gaze. "They're scheduled to play tonight, but they're doing a small acoustic set this morning for the early arrivals. The festival was just beginning to come to life." Staff hurried about making final preparations. Vendors arranged their merchandise, and the early attendees, mostly locals, as Diana pointed out, wandered the grounds leisurely. Music drifted from the open-air concert area where a small crowd had gathered to watch the morning performances around the main stage area. Various tents and structures housed cafes, bars, food stalls, and merchandise vendors. A temporary building constructed of metal scaffolding and panels served as a rooftop lounge, providing a view of the entire festival from above. "This is quite impressive," Evie remarked, taking in the scene. "I haven't been to a music festival since Marissa." Diana squeezed her arm. "Then it's high time you experienced one. Again, come on, let's grab a drink at that rooftop lounge before it gets crowded." They climbed the stairs to the rooftop, where comfortable seating areas were arranged around a central bar. The view was spectacular. The entire festival spread out below them, with the city skyline visible in the distance. After ordering drinks, they found a quiet corner with plush chairs. Diana raised her glass. "To your birthday, my dear friend, and to new memories." Evie clinked her glass against Diana's. "And to old friends who keep us young," as they sipped their drinks. Diana reached into her bag and pulled out a small box wrapped in silver paper with a blue ribbon. "I wasn't sure when to give you this, but I think now is perfect." Evie took the box, touched by the gesture. "Diana, you didn't have to." "Of course I did. It's not every day my best friend turns 62. Evie carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with two small charms, a palette representing Diana's artistic nature, and a book symbolizing Eve's love of reading. A friendship bracelet. Diana explained, "We never had these in all our years of friendship. Now that we're old, I thought it was time." Evie's eyes misted as she fastened the bracelet around her wrist. "It's beautiful, Diana. Thank you." From their vantage point, they could see activity near the main stage. Evie pointed toward a group gathering near the steps leading to the platform. "Is that Glass Saints?" Diana squinted, then nodded. "Yes. I think they're preparing for their acoustic set," she added with a teasing smile. "Look at you becoming a fan already." "It's not the band," Evie admitted. "It's just that woman Paisley. I read about her in your magazine, but I've never heard them play." "Well, we're in luck," Diana said, finishing her drink. "I've got us VIP tickets, frontline access when things really get going this afternoon, and backstage passes for meet and greets." Evie laughed. "VIP will be the oldest people in the front row. Exactly 2 grandmothers rocking out in the front row will be legends." The thought amused Evie. It had been so long since she'd allowed herself this kind of carefree joy. "Which bands can we meet?" "There are 2 meet and greet sessions," Diana explained. "One this morning at 10:30, mainly for locals, and another after the evening performances at 10 p.m. for the general public." "I thought we'd go to the morning one. We're old. We'd be exhausted by 8:30 p.m., and the night sessions are usually crowded with younger fans." "You really planned this whole thing, didn't you?" Evie said, impressed. "I told you it would be fun," Diana said with a wink. "And about that tattoo, Nothing in the magazine seemed to catch your eye earlier, so I want to show you something else. I started working on a few designs before you got here. She reached into her bag, pulled out a sketchbook and pencil tools. She clearly took everywhere and began to draw, while Diana sketched. Eve's attention was drawn to the main stage where Glass Saints had begun their acoustic performance. From this distance, she could see Paisley Williams clearly wearing the distinctive headband that had triggered Evie's memories on the train, despite her initial prejudice against heavily tattooed rock musicians. Evie found herself captivated by Paisley's voice, a haunting, powerful sound that seemed at odds with her intimidating appearance. The artificial horns and extensive facial tattoos that had seemed so demonic in the magazine photos were somehow less frightening when paired with the vulnerable quality of her singing. "She's quite talented," Evie remarked, surprised by her own reaction. Diana looked up from her sketching glass. "Saints has a huge following. Paisley's voice is part of their appeal, raw and emotional. We can meet her later if you'd like." "Oh, I wouldn't know what to say to her." Evie demurred. "Come on, we went backstage all the time when we were students. Remember those rock bands we used to follow around London?" Evie smiled at the memory. "We were different people then. Were we, or have we just forgotten how to have fun?" Diana showed Evie her sketch, a delicate design featuring intertwined vines with small flowers. "What do you think, one for each of us to symbolize our friendship growing across distance and time?" "It's perfect," Evie said, genuinely impressed. "Where do we get these done?" "There's a tattoo booth on the festival grounds. Let's head down there after the performance." They watched as Glass Saints finished their set. The MC announced the next band, one of Diana's favorites from their youth, as Paisley and her bandmates prepared to leave the stage. There was a sudden loud noise from the speakers, causing everyone to wowyeahs in the confusion. Paisley stumbled and fell on the stage, immediately collapsing into a fit of whooping coughs. Her bandmates, Anshan and died. Security personnel rushed to her side, helping her to her feet and quickly escorting her off stage. The incident happened so quickly that most of the sparse morning crowd barely registered it before the next band began setting up. "What happened?" Evie asked, concerned, despite herself. "I'm not sure," Diana replied, frowning. "Maybe she tripped or had a coughing fit. Hopefully she's all right." They finished their drinks and made their way down to the main festival grounds, heading toward the tattoo booth Diana had spotted earlier. A small line had already formed each customer, taking approximately 15 to 20 minutes, and some 20 minutes. "I didn't expect it to be this busy so early," Diana said with a sigh as they took their place at the end of the line. "There are still 3 people ahead of us." Evie checked her watch. "How long until the meet and greet?" "About 20 minutes. Diana replied, looking concerned. "We won't make it through this line in time." She checked her watch again. "What do you say we line up for the meet and greet first and come back here later? For our tattoos, or I could do them at my studio after the festival, if you prefer." "That sounds sensible." Evie agreed. "I don't mind waiting. We have all week after all." They abandoned their place in line and headed toward the backstage area where the morning meet and greet was scheduled to take place. When they arrived at the designated meet and greet area behind the main stage, Evie and Diana were surprised to find no line. The entrance to the backstage area was marked by a gated fence with a small security booth, but no guard was present and no other fans were waiting. "This can't be right," Diana said, checking the time on her watch. "The meet and greet is supposed to start soon. Maybe we're in the wrong place," Evie suggested. Diana shook her head. "No, this is definitely it. I confirmed the location yesterday when I picked up our passes." She looked around, perplexed. "Let me see if I can find someone to help us," while Diana went in search of assistance. Evie remained by the gate, gazing at the complex of temporary structures beyond. They looked impressively solid for festival constructions, more like actual squares than the tents she had expected. Staff members hurried back and forth, carrying equipment and supplies, preparing for the day ahead. As Evie watched, something caught her eye, a slight movement in her peripheral vision, turning her attention to the far side. Of the backstage area, she noticed two figures moving furtively toward the back of what appeared to be a maintenance or storage building. One was a young woman she didn't recognize. But the older man, even from this distance, Evie was certain it was Troy Maddox Paisley's husband. She recognized his distinctive stage outfit and the way he moved from watching him perform. Earlier, there was something secretive about their behavior, the way they glanced around before disappearing behind the building, intrigued and slightly concerned. Evie pulled out her phone and activated the camera, zooming in as much as possible. The image was shaky and blurred, but she could just make out enough to see the two figures exchanging something, small packages passing between their hands, even with their bodies partially hidden behind the building. As Evie continued to watch, the pair began kissing passionately, pressed against the wall of the building. Evie felt her heart sink after reading about Paisley's history of heartbreak and betrayal in the magazine article. Witnessing her husband's infidelity felt especially cruel. She had never been one to take an interest in celebrities or their personal lives. But something about Paisley's story had resonated with her. Perhaps it was the headband connection, or maybe it was simply that Evie understood all too well what it meant to have your life shattered in an instant. Quickly, she took a screenshot of what she was seeing. Though the quality was poor, due to the distance and the limitations of her phone's zoom capability. As she lowered her phone, she saw Troy and the woman separate. Troy opened a back gate for the woman to slip through, then checked his surroundings before heading back toward the main backstage area for a brief moment. His gaze seemed to pass over where Evie stood, but she was too far away for him to notice her watching Diana. Evie called, turning to share what she had witnessed. But her friend was nowhere to be seen. Confused? Evie looked around, finally spotting Diana, returning with a security guard in tow. There you are, Diana said as they approached. I found someone to help us. The security guard, a tall man with a kind face, looked apologetic. I'm so sorry about this, he said. There's supposed to be someone stationed here for the morning meet and greet, but there must have been a scheduling mix-up. Is the meet and greet still happening? Diana asked. Yes, of course, the guard assured them. The morning session is typically much quieter than the evening one. It's mostly for locals and special guests. He reached for his radio. Let me contact the organizer inside and see what we can do for you. While the guard spoke into his radio, Diana leaned close to Evie. What were you looking at when I came back? You seemed very focused on something. Evie hesitated, unsure whether to share what she had seen before she could decide. The security guard returned his attention to them. Which band are you here to meet? He asked. Diana glanced at Evie, then back to the guard. Well, I'd love to meet the Resonators. They were one of my favorites when I was younger. And my friend here is interested in Glass Saints. The guard relayed this information over his radio, waiting for a response after a brief exchange. He nodded and turned back to them. The organizer says they can accommodate you. Follow me, please. He unlocked the gate and held it open for them. As they passed through, Evie found herself scanning the area for any sign of Troy Maddox. But he had disappeared. Is everything all right? Diana whispered as they followed the guard toward the backstage complex. I need to show you something, Evie replied quietly, but not now. Later, the security guard led them to a sturdy temporary building and handed them off to a festival organizer. A young woman with a clipboard and a headset. Welcome to the backstage area, she greeted them warmly. It's not often we have guests for the morning meet and greet. Which band would you like to meet first? Diana deferred to Evie with a glance. It's my friend's birthday today. I think we should meet Glass Saints first if possible. The organizer smiled. That's very sweet. Happy birthday. She consulted her clipboard. Let's see if we can arrange that for you, as the organizer stepped away to make arrangements. Evie turned to Diana. You didn't have to do that. I don't even know their music, but you seemed interested in Paisley, Diana replied, and I saw how you reacted to the headband. Sometimes facing these connections to the past can be healing. Evie wasn't sure about that, but she appreciated Diana's intention. While they waited, she debated whether to show Diana the photos she had taken of Troy's indiscretion. Before she could decide, the organizer returned her expression apologetic. "I'm so sorry," she said. "There seems to be a situation with Paisley Williams. She fell on stage earlier, as you might have seen, and she decided to stay in the nap room to rest. But now we can't seem to locate her." "What do you mean?" Diana asked. Concerned, a staff member said she left the nap room, saying she was going to her team's room, but when we checked, she wasn't there. The organizer shrugged helplessly. "I'm sure she's fine, probably with her husband somewhere. Would you like to meet the other members of Glass Saints instead? Or we could start with the Resonators while we try to locate her." Ivy and Diana exchanged glances. "Let's meet the Resonators first." Diana suggested they were my favorite band when we were in university. The organizer nodded and began leading them down a corridor. "Follow me, please." They're just finishing up some press interviews, but they're excited to meet fans as they walked. Evie turned for one last look over her shoulder, her gaze drawn to a window that overlooked the backstage area. Through it, she could see Troy Maddox standing outside smoking a cigarette and talking intently with two men who appeared to be bodyguards. His expression was serious, agitated, and at one point he handed something to one of the men, money. Evie was almost certain of Paisley Williams. There was no sign. The organizer led them through a maze of corridors within the temporary structure, despite being constructed for the festival. The building felt remarkably solid and permanent, with proper doors, sound, dampening walls, and even air conditioning signs. Indicated dressing rooms, media areas, and various technical spaces here, the organizer announced. Stopping outside a door marked with the Resonators logo. "They're expecting you." Diana's face lit up with anticipation. "I can't believe I'm actually going to meet them after all these years. I used to have their posters all over my university dorm room." The organizer knocked on the door, and after a brief exchange with someone inside, she turned back to them with a smile. "They're ready for you now. Enjoy your meet and greet." As the door opened wider, Evie touched Diana's arm. "I'm sorry, but I need to use the bathroom. You go ahead." Diana looked confused. "Can't it wait?" "This is the moment we've been waiting for." The band members were already visible inside the room, smiling and waving them in. Evie knew Diana couldn't back out now without appearing rude. "It's fine, really," Evie insisted. "I'll be quick and join you in a minute." Diana hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but don't be too long. This is your birthday celebration too." As Diana entered the room, the organizer pointed Evie toward a restroom down the hall. "There's one just around that corner. Do you need me to show you?" "No, thank you," Evie replied. "I'll find it." The organizer nodded. "I'll wait here for you to return." Evie walked in the direction indicated, but as soon as she turned the corner and was out of the organizer's sight, she changed course instead of heading to the restroom. She made her way toward an exit sign, determined to follow her instincts outside. The brightness of the day momentarily blinded her, blinking to adjust her vision. She scanned the area for Troy. She spotted him finishing his conversation with the bodyguards, the three of them parting ways. Troy appeared jumpy, constantly looking around, as if afraid of being observed. When the bodyguards were out of sight, he began walking purposefully toward the back of the maintenance building, the same one, where Evie had seen him with the unknown woman earlier, making sure no one was watching. Evie followed at a distance, the noise of the festival sound checks. Vendors setting up early attendees, chattering provided cover for her footsteps. Troy disappeared behind the maintenance building, and Evie approached cautiously. Staying close to the wall, when she reached the corner, she peered around it slowly. What she saw made her blood run cold. Paisley Williams lay on the ground, struggling to breathe as her body convulsed. Troy crouched beside her, but rather than offering assistance, he appeared to be holding her down, his hands firmly gripping her shoulders to keep her pinned in place. Evie's instincts kicked in immediately. Without thinking, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. 911. "What's your emergency?" The dispatcher answered promptly. "I need an ambulance at the Montreal Music Festival." Evie said, her voice urgent but controlled behind the maintenance building. "A woman is having what looks like seizures, and hey, who are you? What are you doing here?" Troy's voice cut through her call, as he noticed her presence. Evie backed away as Troy stood up and started toward her. "You tried to kill her," she shouted, pointing at Paisley's shaking form on the ground. Troy's face contorted with rage and fear. "You don't know what you're talking about," he snarled, advancing on her. "Get out of here!" Evie continued backing away, her phone still connected to the emergency dispatcher. "Please help," she called into the phone. "I'm at the festival behind the maintenance building. A woman needs medical attention immediately." Evie, a voice called from behind her. "What's going on?" Evie turned to see Diana and the event organizer hurrying toward her, concern evident on their faces. Troy stopped in his tracks, clearly alarmed by the arrival of more witnesses. He looked frantically from Evie to Diana to the organizer, then back at Paisley, who continued to convulse on the ground. "This is a misunderstanding." He began, his tone abruptly shifting to something more controlled. My wife is having an allergic reaction. I was trying to help her." The organizer reached for her radio. "I'm calling security," she said, her voice firm. "No, wait," Troy started, but he was interrupted by the arrival of 2 security guards responding to the organizer's call. "What's happening here?" one of them demanded, while Troy attempted to explain the situation to the security guards. Evie rushed past him to Paisley's side. The woman's face was swollen, her breathing shallow and strained, and her body trembled with involuntary movements. Clear, unmistakable signs of anaphylaxis, instantly recognizable to Evie. Her daughter Marissa had once suffered from this too. "She's having a severe allergic reaction," Evie announced. Opening her purse, "She needs epinephrine immediately." To everyone's surprise, Evie pulled out an EpiPen. "I'm allergic to bee stings," she explained quickly. "I always carry this." Without hesitation, she turned Paisley onto her side and administered the injection into the woman's thigh, holding it there for the required time. Before removing it, the effect wasn't immediate. But gradually, Paisley's breathing began to ease and the convulsions subsided. She coughed weakly, her eyes fluttering open as Evie cradled the woman's head. She had her first close look at the headband that had triggered her memories on the train up. Close, there was no mistaking it, the exact pattern, the orange guitar graphic. Even a small stain on one edge that Evie remembered, trying desperately to remove all those years ago. A realization dawned on her, so shocking that she nearly dropped Paisley's head. "Mary Blaze," Evie whispered the word, escaping her lips before she could stop it. Paisley, still dazed from her reaction, froze at the word. Her eyes, previously unfocused, suddenly locked onto Eve's face. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice a hoarse whisper. Evie pointed to the small stain on the headband. "I tried to wipe that stain so hard, but it wouldn't come out," she said, her voice trembling. "It was so stubborn. We even brought it to the bathroom and tried to wash it with soap, but it wouldn't disappear." Paisley's eyes widened in shock and recognition. "You were so disappointed because you had just gotten that headband from your favorite band, Velvet Blaze," Evie continued, tears beginning to stream down her face, "to cheer you up. I called it Mary Blaze for Marissa, your name, and Velvet Blaze." The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the distant sounds of the festival and the approaching sirens of an ambulance responding to Evie's 911 call. Paisley's expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to something far more painful. Anger as she pulled away from Evie, forcing herself upright despite the visible strain. "Who are you, Marissa?" "It's me." "Evie, your mother." Paisley shook her head slowly, her eyes brimming with hurt. "If you're really my mother, where were you and what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why did you leave me that night? They told me you didn't want me anymore." The accusation struck Evie like a physical blow. "Leave you, Marissa? I never left you. You got lost in the crowd. I searched everywhere for you. I never stopped searching. Even after the police and everyone else gave up Paisley, or Marissa as Evie now knew her to be, shook her head in disbelief. "I'm Paisley now. If you kept searching for me, you would have found me," she said bitterly. By now a small crowd had formed. Troy, the security guards, Diana, the event organizer, and several fans who had come for the meet and greet. All eyes were fixed on the unfolding scene between Evie and the woman known as Paisley Williams. Who told you that? Evie asked, her voice breaking. Who told you I abandoned you? Paisley's gaze shifted to Troy, who stood a few feet away, his face a mask of controlled concern that didn't reach his eyes. She said, her voice gaining strength as she pointed accusingly at her husband. You always told me my mother abandoned me, that you found me and helped me. Her eyes narrowed, and just now, you tried to kill me. Troy's facade cracked slightly. What the hell is this? He demanded, looking around at the onlookers. This is all a misunderstanding. I was trying to save my wife when this woman, he pointed at Evie, got in the way. Cut. The Paisley snapped. You had to have put something in my breakfast. That's why I collapsed on stage. Why? I suddenly got dizzy. Then you dragged me out here from the nap room and didn't even help you. Restrained me. You knew about my allergy and made sure I didn't have my bag with my EpiPen. The arrival of police officers responding to the disturbance added to the tension. As they approached, Troy's demeanor became increasingly agitated. She's delusional, from the reaction he insisted to the officers. I was trying to help her. Evie stepped forward. That's not true, she said firmly. I saw him earlier paying his bodyguards for something. She pulled out her phone, and I saw him with a young woman behind the same building, exchanging what looked like drugs and being intimate. Paisley's eyes widened in disbelief. You did what? She breathed, stunned. Evie showed the blurry photos she had captured earlier to the police. While not clear enough to be definitive proof, they were suggestive enough to raise serious questions. One of the police officers turned to the bodyguards who had remained nearby. Is this true? Did he pay you for something? The bodyguards exchanged uneasy glances, their loyalty clearly faltering under the weight of police scrutiny. When Paisley urged them to tell the truth, reminding them that their allegiance was to the band, not just to Troy, one of them finally stepped forward. He paid us to. He hesitated, then continued to get rid of her body. Take it to the forest where no one would find her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope which he handed to the officer. Gave us this as a down payment. There's more. When the job was done, the revelation sent a ripple of shock through the gathered crowd. The police officers moved quickly to restrain Troy, who suddenly seemed to realize the gravity of his situation as they handcuffed him and read him his rights. His composure completely broke down. You're getting uglier every year, he yelled at Paisley. Look at you with that horn, that tattoo all over your body. I told you. I don't like them. You're a monster. A wretched woman who can't even show gratitude. His voice grew louder, more desperate, as the officers began to lead him away. I found you lost in that Manchester concert 25 years ago with my friends. I was just a young man back then, 20 years old, and you were 10. We took you in because you looked so cute and had a beautiful voice and face. The officers attempted to silence him, warning that anything he said could be used against him. But Troy no longer cared. The lead officer raised a hand to halt the others, allowing Troy to speak. It was supposed to be just a fun thing before I helped you return to your parents, he continued. But the more I heard you sing, the more I wanted to keep you for my band, that me and my friends were just working on. We had a studio, so we kept you there all the time. Evie felt sick listening to the confession, imagining her 10-year-old daughter held captive by a group of young men with no concern for the devastation they had caused. You kept crying for your mother, Troy went on, and we were afraid, so we told you your mother abandoned you so you'd be quiet. But we were nice to you. We trained you, perfected your pitch. You became part of our team and family. His voice took on a reminiscent quality, as if he were telling a fond story. Rather than confessing to a kidnapping when you got older, we knew we couldn't keep you there. So we had to move you somewhere you wouldn't hear about your mother looking for you. To Canada. It was a long process, but someone helped us, one of my friend's family, to falsify all your documents. But then our band got disintegrated because that family got caught by police. I feared the police would find you based on the track document. So I left across the country and formed a new band, Glass Saints. His final words were hurled over his shoulder as he was pushed into the back of the police vehicle. Don't blame me, Paisley. You never searched for your mother. You just believed everything we told you. And you married me because you said you loved me. But now you're just a proud, ugly pig. The police car door closed on his tirade, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. One of the remaining officers addressed the crowd. We'll need statements from all witnesses for now. This area is a police investigation site. He turned to the event organizer. I'm afraid the Glass Saints performance will have to be canceled. The organizer nodded, already reaching for her radio to communicate the change to the festival. Staff paramedics who had arrived with the police approached Marissa, offering to examine her. After her anaphylactic reaction, she allowed them to check her vital signs, but refused to be transported to a hospital. I'm fine now, she insisted. Though her voice was still raspy, the epinephrine worked. Her gaze returned to Evie, who stood nearby, her face etched with a mixture of joy and sorrow, despite the revelation that Paisley Williams was her long-lost daughter. Paisley made no move to embrace her mother. There was too much to process, too many years of believing a lie to simply accept the truth. In an instant, the police will need to speak with both of you. An officer told them, we can take you to the station now for formal statements. Evie nodded, never taking her eyes off her daughter. Whatever you need. As they were escorted to separate police vehicles, Evie felt Diana's hand slip into hers. I'll come with you, her friend said quietly. Evie squeezed Diana's hand gratefully after 25 years of searching and hoping she had found her daughter. But the reunion was far from the joyful scene she had imagined in her dreams. Instead, it was complicated by years of deception, pain, and the shocking revelation of Troy's attempted murder. As the police car pulled away from the festival grounds, Evie watched the crowd of onlookers through the window. There were more people now compared to the morning, though not as many as there would be for the evening performances. Some had their phones out, no doubt capturing the drama for social media. The story of Paisley Williams, her attempted murder, and the revelation of her true identity would be worldwide news. Nightfall at 4. Evie, the only story that mattered, was the one she had been waiting 25 years to continue, the story of a mother and her daughter separated by cruelty. But now, against all odds, reunited, the police station buzzed with activity as officers processed the case that had unexpectedly landed in their laps. Troy Maddox had been moved to the booking area while the other members of Glass Saints were being questioned as potential accomplices, though they appeared as confused by the day's events as everyone else. Evie and Diana were led to separate interview rooms, while Paisley was taken to a third, the stark functional room where Evie found herself contained. Nothing but a table, 2 chairs, and a recording device. A female detective introduced herself as Sergeant Claire Morrow before beginning the interview. Mrs. Hara, she said, her English tinged with a French-Canadian accent, I understand this is a difficult situation, but I need to ask you some questions about your daughter's disappearance. Evie nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Of course you reported your daughter, Marissa Harrow, missing in Manchester, United Kingdom in 1980. Is that correct? Yes. Evie confirmed she was 10 years old. We were at a Velvet Blaze concert. She just vanished in the crowd, Sergeant. Morrow made notes as Evie spoke. And you're certain that Paisley Williams is your daughter? Without a doubt, Evie replied firmly. The headband she wears? It's the exact one Marissa had the day she disappeared. It was given to her by the band when we went backstage. There's even a stain on it that we couldn't remove. And you recognize this stain? Yes, but it was more than that. When she had the allergic reaction, I recognized the symptoms immediately. Marissa had severe allergies to certain foods, particularly gluten and shellfish. I always carried an EpiPen for my own bee sting allergy. And the nickname, Mary Blaze, can you explain that? It was something just between us, Evie said, a small smile softening her features at the memory. After the band gave her the headband, she got that That stain on it almost immediately, she was devastated to cheer her up. I combined her name with the band's name, Marissa, and Velvet Blaze became Mary Blaze. It was our little joke, something only the two of us knew. Sergeant Morrow nodded, making additional notes. We'll need to contact the authorities in the UK, of course, and there will be DNA testing to confirm the relationship officially. But your testimony is compelling, Mrs. Harrow. She leaned forward slightly. Can you tell me what happened today? From your perspective, Evie recounted everything from seeing the magazine on the train, to spotting Troy with the unknown woman behind the maintenance building, to finding him restraining Marissa during her anaphylactic reaction. I had no idea who she really was, until that moment. Evie concluded, I just knew someone needed help, and I happened to have an EpiPen that was fortunate the detective observed from what the paramedics reported. Your intervention likely saved her life. Eve's eyes filled with tears, 25 years of searching. And I found her by chance, only to nearly lose her again in the same moment. Sergeant Morrow's professional demeanor softened slightly. Mr. Maddox has a history with law enforcement, though nothing as serious as kidnapping or attempted murder. There have been complaints from female fans about inappropriate behavior and some drug-related offenses, but insufficient evidence for prosecution. What will happen to him now? V asked with his confession and the testimony of the bodyguards. He'll face serious charges: kidnapping, falsifying documents, attempted murder. The investigation is just beginning, but he won't be free for a very long time, and the others, the friends he mentioned who helped take Marissa, will be working with international authorities to identify and locate them. Your daughter's testimony will be crucial in that effort. The detective hesitated, then added, though I should warn you, Mrs. Harrow, that Ms. Williams, or Marissa as you know her, may not be entirely cooperative at first. 25 years of believing one narrative can be difficult to overcome. Evie nodded sadly. I understand. I just want her to know the truth, even if she needs time to accept it. There's one more thing, Sergeant Morrow said, her tone careful, given Mr. Maddox's history and his comments about your daughter's appearance. We have reason to believe he may have been abusive throughout their relationship, possibly from the beginning, when she was still a minor. This is something we'll be investigating thoroughly. The thought made Evie physically ill. Her daughter, her little girl, in the hands of such a man for 25 years. It was almost too much to bear. After completing her statement and signing the necessary forms, Evie was escorted to a family waiting room to rest until further questioning might be needed. To her surprise, Paisley was already there, seated in a chair by the window. Her elaborate makeup smudged from the day's events, Diana was nowhere to be seen, presumably still giving her own statement. Evie hesitated in the doorway, unsure whether her presence would be welcome. Paisley turned at the sound of the door. Her expression guarded for a long moment. Neither woman spoke. Then finally, Paisley broke the silence. I'm sorry I didn't believe you, she said quietly, about not abandoning me after being separated for so long. I chose to believe Troy's word instead. Evie took a tentative step into the room. You had no reason not to believe him. He was the only constant in your life after that day. Paisley laughed bitterly. Some constant Troy was right about one thing. Look at me, I'm just an ugly, broken woman. No, Evie said firmly, approaching slowly, but stopping short of touching her daughter. You're a beautiful, talented woman with a whole life ahead of you. You're 35 with a blossoming career. It doesn't have to end. Because of Troy, Paisley looked up, studying her mother's face for the first time since their reunion. Something softer entered her expression. You look old now, she said. I still remember. You were so young back then. Mom, the word mom sounding strange on her ears after so many years. She reached up to touch her head where the headband had been now kept by police as evidence. I guess a part of me was still holding on to you. That's why I could never throw the headband away. Why I wore it everywhere I went. A small smile touched her lips. Remember that day when we went backstage and met Velvet Blaze? And they gave me the headband you tried so hard to get me that access, Biggie. 'Cause you forgot to register for the VIP tickets. Evie nodded, tears welling in her eyes at the shared memory. I asked around and offered to buy that access from whoever wanted to give it up. Luckily, that one person let me buy it from him. Paisley chuckled, and in that moment, despite the tattoos and piercings that transformed her appearance, Evie could see her 10-year-old daughter's smile. "I'm sorry, I'm not your little girl anymore," Paisley said quietly. Eve couldn't hold back any longer. She crossed the remaining distance between them and knelt before her daughter's chair, taking Paisley's hands in hers. "You are always my beautiful daughter," no matter what tears streamed down both their faces as Marissa leaned forward, allowing herself to be embraced by the woman she had believed had abandoned her a quarter-century ago. The door opened and Diana entered, pausing at the sight before her. "Oh," she said softly, "I'd say this is the best birthday present ever." Evie looked up, her face wet with tears, but her eyes shining with joy. The very best, she agreed. Diana approached them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "Life has a funny way of coming full circle, doesn't it? 25 years ago, you lost each other today on your birthday. You found your way back together." Paisley pulled back slightly, looking from Diana to her mother with confusion. "It's your birthday today?" Evie nodded. "Yes, I'm 62. Today, Diana and I came to Montreal to celebrate and attend the music festival." "I had no idea," Paisley said, a new wave of emotion crossing her features. "All these years, I didn't even know when your birthday was. There's so much. I don't know about you, about my real life before Troy. You were still young back then, but we have time now," Evie assured her, squeezing her daughter's hands all the time in the world to get to know each other again. "I don't even know who I am anymore. My whole life, my career, my identity. It's all been built on lies," Paisley said, suddenly looking vulnerable despite her fierce exterior. "You are who you've always been," Evie told her firmly. "Talented, strong, resilient. The circumstances of how you got here may have been built on deception, but what you've made of yourself, your music, your art, that's all real. That's all you." Diana nodded in agreement. "Your mother's right. You've created something powerful from your pain. Now that you know the truth, you can build something even stronger." For the first time that day, Paisley smiled fully, a genuine expression that transformed her face from intimidating to radiant. And in that smile, Evie saw her 10-year-old daughter, the little girl who had disappeared 25 years ago, the child she had never stopped searching for. Diana, watching them from the opposite seat, smiled contentedly. "You know," she said, "when we planned this trip, I promised you a birthday to remember." Evie, I think we can safely say I delivered. The spontaneous laughter that filled the room was perhaps the most healing sound of all three women, bound by a remarkable journey, facing an uncertain future, with the shared knowledge that whatever came next, they would face it together.